Welcome and thanks for tuning in.
Hi.
I'm Lynn Berger, host of Lynn Berger Interviews Remarkable People. And today I have the pleasure of interviewing Lisa Denning. Lisa is a wine writer, and she's going to share with us her adventures and travels, how she got to where she is today. Thank you so much, Lisa, for being on today.
Oh, my pleasure, Lynn. Thank you for having me.
This is going to be a lot of fun today. So, Lisa, take me back to when you started at the New York Times and how you got to where you are today.
Well, after I graduated college, like many of my cohorts, I thought I wanted to be in the business world. I moved to New York City from a small college that I attended up in Maine, and I was raring to go. And I got, my first jobs were all in business, and I ended up landing with a great job in advertising at the New York Times. But what I found myself doing, especially on Wednesdays when the food and living section came out, I'd be like, only like I was supposed to be looking at advertising and how I could get more advertising, but I seemed to be more interested in what recipes were being posted that day. And I was oohing and eyeing over the recipes and calling my best friend, did you see this? Did you see that? Oh, that looks so delicious. But I realized I didn't know how to cook. So I figured, with this but I did love to eat. So they go hand in hand. If you love to eat, you can learn, hopefully, how to cook and enjoy it, which happened to me. But I had to quit my job and attend the French Culinary Institute full time in order to do that. I really only knew how to bake. As a child, I loved baking, but I never really got the opportunity to cook like savory dishes. So I went to the French Culinary Institute. It was down in Soho at the time. And I took a 6-month full-time program there. And when I graduated, I had various jobs in cooking, catering, food styling. I was sort of feeling my way to see what I liked best in the food world. But also along this time, I became engaged, married, and had my first child.
Wow.
So I was actually, when I had my first child, I was working freelance developing recipes for Family Circle and Red Book magazines. But when I had her and I stayed home for a bit, I just didn't really want to leave my baby. And soon after, before you know it, a year later, I was pregnant again. So then I had another little girl. And long story short, I ended up having 3 beautiful daughters.
Wow.
And I didn't work for 21 years. I was a stay-at-home mom, but I did a lot of cooking, and my husband and those girls definitely benefited from my experience at cooking school.
Well, it was so brave of you to leave the New York Times, right? To go for your passion.
Well, I just figured I was young, I was single. If I didn't do it now, when would I do it? There were other things in my life that I was tempted to do when I was even younger than that. In my early 20s, I really wanted to just leave the United States and go live in France.
Wow.
I came really close to doing that, but I didn't have a job there or anything. So I did chicken out with that. So I figured if I don't do this, I would regret it my whole life.
Well, you made the right decision, right? So 21 years, you raised your children, you educated yourself, correct?
Yes. So what happened was, for one of my big birthdays, my girlfriends who knew my strong cooking interest in food, which also goes hand in hand with an interest in wine, they presented me with a gift, a really awesome gift. It was a certificate to attend the Sommelier Society of America.
How
It was
nice.
a 5-month program every Tuesday morning for 2 hours. And then at the end, it was like a 2-hour exam with a tasting component. So it was pretty serious, and I really learned a lot. So I took that class. And then I still wasn't sure what I wanted to do, because I did have one daughter at home in high school. And a couple of years went by, and a friend of a friend was dating someone. No, my best friend was dating someone whose friend was one of the owners of Sherry Lehman, the wine store on Park Avenue. And so he said, sure, have her contact my general manager. And I did. And literally the next day I was in there for an interview, and I got hired on the spot. And that's how my wine career started. That was that was in 2012, and it was a part-time job, so it worked out perfectly for me. I was learning a lot at Sherry Lehman.
Mhm.
Uh, I just wanted to share it. I wanted to create a website that I would share my knowledge, and it would also. I'm one of these people who likes to like record things. Like I have like photo albums from my childhood that I put together and my children's
Nice.
childhood. So it just was fitting that I just wanted to create this website, as to continue this
Mhm.
recording of my life. So I did, not knowing what it would lead to.
And tell us a little bit about how you started it and how it got off the ground and.
So I just, I had someone help me build it because I'm not
Mhm.
the most technical. But once I
Mhm.
got going and he explained everything, I was able to get right into it. And I divided it up into 3 sections initially, one being recipes, one being restaurant reviews, and the third being strictly like wine reviews, things like that. So I just started whatever I felt like writing about. I just write an article, and I posted a lot of recipes. And of course, my husband, who was so proud of me, sent it out to all his friends and said, subscribe to my wife's blog,
Nice.
which a lot of people did. So now I have a nice base of subscribers. And it's just grown since then. And what happens is when you have a website, especially one devoted to wine in particular, you get to know a lot of like people in the wine world beyond.
Mhm.
I mean, I already knew a lot of people in the
Mhm.
wine world, but the people who are involved with promoting the wineries, PR firms, and consortiums of wineries. So I started getting a lot of invitations to attend seminars or tastings. And then as time went on, I started getting invitations to actually go on trips, which were fully supported by whoever was inviting
That's
me.
great.
So before the couple of years before COVID, I was going to Europe several times a year on these trips.
I saw from those blog posts, one place was nicer than the next. I mean, so beautiful and romantic, and I wanted to go. Yeah. And
I
you
want to
really,
go back.
and you did a lot of writing about when you visited, right?
Yeah, I mean that's part of the deal. If they're going to give you a whole trip there, you should write a few good articles. So, I enjoyed that, and that also expanded my blog somewhat into the travel sector.
Mm-hmm.
So I like to write about the travel aspect with a wine slant, because wine tourism is so popular now.
Right. So what was your favorite? Could I ask the question when you were traveling? Did you have a favorite place?
Well, that's really hard to say because Italy is really one of my most favorite places, and I went to on a lot of trips to Italy.
Right.
But one trip that particularly stands out wasn't actually a trip that I was invited on. It was a trip that I won. I entered shortly after I started my blog. I entered what's called the Millesima Blog Awards,
Mm-hmm.
and there were like you had to submit an article. I submitted an article about sherry and food pairings with sherry wine.
Wow.
And out of like 400 submissions, mine was one of the 6 winners. So that was great. And the winning trip was a week in Bordeaux. And it wasn't just any old week in Bordeaux. It was in the cream of the crop area of Bordeaux, all the beautiful chateaus they took us to visit. I had lunch with the owner of Chateau Margaux, and they were just pouring glass after glass of the 1996 Chateau Margaux. I was sitting there at a table with a roaring fire, and her 2 children were there, and her dogs were at my feet. And it was just like, I had to pinch myself, like, really happening? Because it was all new to me, too. This was really before I started getting, all the invitations that I do now. So that was a very, very memorable experience.
It sounds great. Now, do you travel by yourself when you go?
Yeah, I mean, you're usually with a group, and the groups can run from 4 people to 40 people.
Mm-hmm.
But generally speaking, the groups are usually around like 8 to 15 people. And you
Okay.
it's a long day. You get up early, you're on a van or a bus, and you're going from winery to winery, and breakfast and dinner. Sometimes you leave at 7 in the morning and you don't get back until 11 o'clock at night.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's long. It's very long days.
Okay. So you did that while you were at Sherry Lehman?
No. So what happened was with Sherry Lehman, I started the blog towards the end of my time at Sherry Lehman. And then when that started to get going, and I felt like my time had run its course at Sherry Lehman, I really learned
Mhm.
everything I could learn there. So I stopped working at Sherry Lehman
Mhm.
and figured I would just go on with my blog, but somehow I kind of missed that retail customer connection.
Mm.
So I happened to see a job posted on winejobs.com that was for a job that required someone to write and to work in a store.
Perfect.
So yeah, it was like unbelievable that appeared on my screen. So I applied for the job and I got it. And it's at Grape Collective, which is on the Upper West Side of Manhattan. And I've been working there now for 4.5 years. And I've been getting a lot more press trips because I write a lot for Grape Collective as well. And yeah, so
So,
that's.
but I guess the press trip stopped.
Oh, yes, yes. So since COVID, no traveling. So that's been a disappointing. But it seems like, it will start picking up fairly soon.
Do you have any trips planned?
No, I was invited on one to Italy, but there are so many restrictions still that I just figured I'd pass on it until the world opens up a bit more.
Okay. It must be very hard to go from so much travel to not traveling, right?
Yeah, I've really hunkered down and tried to like do a lot of writing, and I have done a lot of writing, but I keep getting more invites for now. It's not invites to go to Italy, it's invites to go on a Zoom webinar. And they send you the wine and you have a tasting, and it's actually great. So it's hard to.
Oh, that's nice. I went to one of those. It's
Oh, you did?
fun, right?
Yeah, they're
So
fun. Fun.
that's what your
It's
life looks
fun.
like now?
That's what I love. Is you learn, in wine, the more you know, the more you realize you don't know. So you're always trying to learn more.
Okay. So now you're at Grape Collective and you're
Hmm.
doing a lot of writing.
Yeah.
And tell us, I know you had quite an experience recently. You were nominated for an award, correct? And then
Yes. Well, what
well, tell
happened?
us about the award first.
Well, it was. Now I'm blanking on the name of the award, but
I wrote down for taste the flavors of Monte Cucco Tuscany's up and coming wine region, right?
that was the article I wrote about a wine region in Tuscany that's called Monte Cucco. It's right
Right.
next door to Brunello, but it's not as well known as Brunello, but the
Mhm.
wines are amazing. So I wrote this article about it with passion because I love the place and the wines. And it was nominated for an award. And this was a year ago, March. So my daughters were visiting my apartment. My daughters are all grown now, but two of them were visiting. And I said, let's cook a nice meal and open this bottle I brought back from Monte Cucco to celebrate my nomination for this award.
Mhm.
Well, we enjoyed the meal, we enjoyed the wine, and the next day we all woke up sick. And it wasn't like food poisoning, it was COVID. And
Mm.
yeah, and we all got COVID, the four of us. Luckily, my oldest daughter wasn't there and she stayed away after that. She never got it. But we all got COVID. Luckily, none of us had to go to the hospital. But we all also lost our sense of smell and taste during that time frame. A
Mm.
year ago, we lost our sense of smell and taste for about 2 weeks, but then it took another couple of weeks to slowly come back. So that, as a food and wine lover, was very frustrating.
I can imagine.
Yeah, for all of us. Even all my kids are into food too. And I wrote an article. It's on my blog if anyone wants to look at it about
Yes,
what
it's
happened.
excellent.
Yes.
Please tell them how to get to it. How
Yeah,
can someone
so
find it?
you just go to my blog and put in the search COVID, it will pop up. So anyways, long story short is that we recovered from our lack of sense of smell and taste. And a few months went by. I mean, I wouldn't say it was 100%. There were certain things that still were muted, not necessarily food. It could be, a body lotion or whatever. Um, but food and wine tasted pretty good for a few months there. And then in September, I still remember it was like September 4th. I was out to dinner with my husband and I realized there were some odd flavors. And the next morning, my coffee smelled a little weird, and the yogurt tasted a little different. And what happened was, and then I knew exactly what it was because my daughter had come down with the same thing, but a more severe case. It's called parosmia. And people who have parosmia, it's usually something you get from COVID, but you can also get it from other viruses or head injuries. And it's a distortion of smell and taste. So certain, like I have a very mild case, and for me, it's like I have a list, a not too long list of things that I just avoid now because they just don't taste that good anymore. My daughter's case is a little more severe, and there's a Facebook group for it. And people on the Facebook group, some of them literally have to use a nose clip to eat dinner. Otherwise they'll get sick. That's how bad it can be. It's really, really, I mean, it just goes to show you what the after effects that COVID can have on your body. A lot of people have other physical ailments. Physically, I feel fine, but definitely I have a little bit of this taste issue.
So are there certain foods just for you that people need to stay away from, or,
Well, it's interesting. A lot of people on the Facebook, everyone mentions a lot of the same foods: coffee, onions, especially raw onions, garlic. But for me, but then people have their own individual things. So all over the map. Yeah.
So how are you now? How's your taste?
Things are pretty much the same. I have apparently when you have parosmia versus complete lack of sense of smell and taste, which one of my friends still has not tasted anything in a year. But if you have parosmia, apparently that's your body trying to correct itself. And I think it's just going to be one of those things that you wake up and your body has adjusted. That's at least.
Well, you looked good and you feel strong, so hopefully
I feel good.
It's on its way.
Yeah, and it hasn't affected my ability to taste and critique wines. So that's
they knew what to keep.
Yeah, that's important. That's very important because when I first had COVID and my taste was, not so good when it was recovering, the first time I tried wine, it tasted horrible. It just tasted like bitter alcohol. That's all it tasted like, no fruit whatsoever. So that I don't know what I would have done if that continued, but luckily that didn't continue.
It didn't, right?
No. That's all better.
A lot of it sticks.
Yeah.
So particularly, how would you recommend if someone wanted to get in the field of wine?
Well, I mean, one way is like how I got into it, through writing. So that's one way. But if you don't like to write, actually, I should say the way I got into it was going to work at a store. I learned so much just by working in a store and, helping customers find out what they like to drink. So there's work in retail, there's work writing, work for a distributor perhaps. But maybe if you don't have any wine knowledge, you just know you love it, you really have to learn. I mean, I think you have to have a little bit of background. You don't have to learn. You don't have to get like to the nth degree or anything, but it helps to go into either writing or a store or the distributor, having a basic knowledge of the wine regions of the world.
No, it seems like you did everything right.
I didn't really think about it. I just sort of did what I wanted to do, I mean, I don't know. I feel like in some ways I got lucky. In other ways, I know it wasn't really just luck. But, I feel like in a way it was a combination of the two. And also just my personality. I like to explore. I don't let fear hold me back. And everyone has fear. And of course I had fear trying all these new things, but it kind of like eggs me on in a way.
Right. It motivates you. No, I mean, you tested it out. Well, first of all, you did take a risk, but you were young at your original,
Oh, yes,
and you
when I
went
left
for
New
what you
York Times,
wanted.
I did. That
And
was risky. I didn't have the money to pay for it. I just put it on my credit card. And I said, I'll just pay it off monthly. But I do have a funny story to tell you. My husband and I were engaged at the time. And when he found out, he's the type of guy who like, he would not like pay a bill completely and pay
right.
interest on a credit card. When he found out I had done that, we weren't even married. I don't even know if we were engaged actually. He said, you can't have that. You can't pay monthly interest on that. And he paid it off for me.
Oh, that
You
was
know
meant
what? But he's no dummy because he's been getting the best meals ever since. He had an ulterior motive there.
Well, it seems to have worked out very well. And, you mentioned a couple of very good points. One is you went for what you wanted and you knew you would figure it out, but you didn't know how. And then, anytime someone makes a career change, there's two things to think about. It's the practicalities and the psychological, holding yourself back, but you didn't. You let, it's part of your personality.
Yeah.
And also people can learn, small risks,
Yeah, I think people who aren't that risk takers can,
right.
like you said, just try a small risk. And if that works out, then maybe they'll jump up to something a little bit bigger.
Yeah, no, it's very nice. For the audience, I want to share that Lisa and I were on a panel together talking about second careers. And she's a real spokesperson for this. You have a new
Who would have
career.
thought?
No, you've done a wonderful job with all this. Now, how do you see, going back to your old life with traveling, and from this experience, are you going to resume what you did before, or are you going to start differently?
Yeah, I plan on definitely jumping right back in when things are ready. I mean, I am fully vaccinated. I don't think if that would be an option if I weren't.
Hmm.
My kids are out of the house now completely. So, and luckily my husband has the dog to hang out with when I'm gone.
So what's happening to all the places that you stayed? Are you in touch with the people during Corona? Like, do you know what's going on over in
Yeah,
Europe?
yeah. I like to, see how everyone's doing. It's rough, and a lot of my contacts are in Europe and Spain and Italy, and things are just, still pretty rough there. France too, still a lot of lockdowns. People, some places having a hard time getting the virus, but it looks like it's on the up and up. Look like they're gradually getting better as they did here.
Okay, good.
And
No,
they are here, hopefully continuing.
no, that's good. So do you have a first trip planned?
No, not yet, because I did turn down that one to Italy, but we'll see.
Well, it sounds like you made the right decision, you know.
Yeah, there were a lot of limitations, like you could only stay for 5 days, and they had all these other restrictions with like the actual tastings, and restaurants aren't open. I mean, my favorite thing to do when I'm there, besides tasting wine, is to go out to try the restaurants, and they're not open.
There's no point, right?
Yeah, exactly. But they will be.
Oh, there will be. You're very optimistic. And it'll probably just be a little bit of time, right?
Yeah, soon enough. Well,
So do you have any new projects on the horizon or new things you're thinking about doing?
you mean besides wine writing?
No, or within your wine writing, is there
Oh,
anything?
there's so many. Today, I just posted an article about the wines of Idaho. Wines are really good. They're right next door to Washington State and Oregon. Their vineyards are literally like some of them are within a 10-minute drive. So that's great. I also did an exploration recently of wines from Uruguay. And so those are also wines I wasn't too familiar with. South
Mhm.
America. My last trip that was on the books that got canceled was to Argentina and Chile. So I've never been to South America, but getting to know Uruguay was a step in that direction.
Well, it's interesting, things you would have never experienced before you did have an opportunity. Idaho, who thought, right? You
Yeah,
know,
exactly.
and maybe there are more domestic wines to explore during
Oh,
this.
do you know wine is made in every state of the United States? Every
Really?
state, yeah.
So
So
you could travel all
yeah,
over.
right. Right, since Europe is shut down, there's so much to explore right here in the United States. Like the Finger Lakes. If anyone
Hmm.
is curious about the Finger Lakes, that wine region offers beautiful wines. They're actually very European in style, and they're
Mm,
delicious. Yeah, because their climate is a little cooler up there.
and it's beautiful.
It is. I love it up there.
Well, Lisa, I want to thank you so much. Is there anything else that you didn't get to share today that you would have liked to?
I don't think so. It
It
was
was
great
a,
seeing you and spending time chatting.
yeah, no, as I said, we met before and hopefully we'll meet again. Another opportunity to share what you're doing in your career and your life. So thank you so much. Yes,
And you can also find me on Instagram
please.
at NYC Restaurants. That's my Instagram handle, NYC Restaurants. So in addition to grapecollective.com and thewinechef.com, there's NYC Restaurants on Instagram,
Perfect.
posting pictures of food and wine.
And that it looks, the stuff I read is delicious.
Thank you.
So
It is.
thank you. Okay, have a wonderful
Okay.
day. Stay safe and stay well.
You too.
Thank you.
Thank you.